welcome to my channel. My name is Kyla, and today I'm going to do the no disclaimers tarot tag started by Katey Flowers. I will link her video down below. I've watched a lot of these videos and I find them very entertaining. Something that Katey said in her video that I just want to say before I get started is that this is called no disclaimers. The whole point is to be opinionated, so everything I say is my opinion, and if you don't like it, sorry, you can leave me a comment and tell me why down below. Alright, so the first question is, what trends or tropes in tarot annoy you the most? I have a couple, so starting with trends on like cards. I agree with a lot of the videos I've seen that mention like the pregnant empress. I think that's kind of an overdone thing, and the Three of Swords with just a heart and three swords, I think that's a little overdone. But I also have a deck trend that I think is kind of obnoxious, and I have a deck here and I will show you. So the trend is these mass market fandom decks that have been coming out a lot lately, and there's a lot coming out this year that are kind of a cash grab slash like low effort decks. This one's not too bad. This is the Nightmare Before Christmas Tarot by Inside Editions, and they've come out with a few other decks and are coming out with more this year. This one, it's a little bit better, I've heard, than some of the other ones. I only have, this is the only one I have. And I bought it because I was a huge Nightmare Before Christmas fan, like when it came out originally and through the years. And I really like Nightmare Before Christmas. And even if I didn't use this as a tarot deck, I would probably still want it in my collection just for the like nostalgia of Nightmare Before Christmas. So, but I'm not a big fan of this trend of these pop culture decks. I am, and that's not all of the decks, it's just some of them seem so low effort, like they're just there to make a buck, and whoever is making these decks isn't necessarily knows tarot, or maybe even is a fan of the show. They're just, you know, paid to make these decks or whatever, and then they slap the name on them. So like I said, this one's not bad. I haven't used it much myself because I ended up getting it after Halloween, and then I kind of went on a tarot slump, so I kind of took a break from tarot for a while, and so the season was kind of past, and I really feel like it's like a deck I would use in the fall, winter time, and I wasn't really doing much tarot at the time. So this is the Night Before Christmas. Like I said, a lot of people have complained about very pippish minors, and this does have that to some extent. Like, you know, they're pretty simple, but it does have some added details to it, which I do think helps. Which is why I've heard a lot of people say that this one's not as bad as like some of the other ones that this Inside Editions has come out with. So that's kind of a trend that I am not super fond of, is this kind of low effort, quick buck kind of making decks. The other one I won't talk too much on, but is like decks that use a lot of buzzwords that claim to be diverse or claim to be you know, a super spiritual item or something like that, and really have no, it's kind of like token diversity or token spirituality, and they're mostly just using those words because they think they can use them to sell the deck, and not because they actually care to make a diverse deck or kind of really buy into it. They're just, like I said, there to make a buck. So that's another trend that I've noticed lately that I'm not a big fan of. Alright, question number 2. What deck do you feel is overrated? I don't necessarily feel any deck is really overrated. I know a lot of people have mentioned the Wild Unknown Tarot. I think that deck did get a huge burst of popularity, and it actually is the deck that I saw that was like really drew me back into tarot after a very long hiatus, like 10 plus years. So I don't necessarily think it's overrated. I do think that it's probably not for everyone, but I do think it really kind of spurred on, at least for myself, a like love of tarot again. I do have a deck here that I wouldn't necessarily is overrated, but it's just not my style and my aesthetic, and that is this Alana Fairchild deck, the White Light Oracle. And I actually received this in a subscription box, which is why I have it. And I've just kind of hang on to it because I live in a really small town. I don't have like a place I can take it to donate it, or there's not really like, there's Facebook Marketplace stuff, but there's probably, you know, only a handful of other people who read tarot or even know like about tarot much in this area. Like, it's a very small community, and I have a kind of public job, so I don't like to post things necessarily on there. So I've just kind of held on to it, and eventually I will give it to somebody or sell it online or something. It's just not my thing. So I wouldn't necessarily it's overrated, because I don't really hear a lot about this deck, and it's probably perfect for somebody, but like, I don't understand this. I have to use the guidebook every time I pick it up. The backs are gorgeous. These like wolves are gorgeous. Oh, it's that same card. But it's just not my thing. Like I said, I'll keep it until I find somebody to give it to, or rehome it on the internet or something. But it's just not my thing. So I don't know if I have any decks, or if I can think of any other decks that I would say are necessarily overrated. So it's kind of my closest to like that sentiment. All right, number 3. What are some of your least favorite decks you've seen since joining TarotTube? Well, obviously I don't have any here to show you because I haven't bought them, because I don't like, no, it's not that I don't like them, they're just not my thing, right? So the Mystic Mondays tarot, I just never was a big fan of that look. I'm not a big fan of like Alice in Wonderland decks, because I don't really have much of a connection to Alice in Wonderland. Like, I read the story forever ago, and I've seen like the movies and stuff, but it's just not something that ever was like, I was never attached to it as a kid or anything like that, so it's just not my thing. And then the other one that I know I'll probably get some hate for is the Deviant Moon. It's just not my style, it's not my thing, and I know a lot of people say that and then they get it and they love it, so maybe I'll try it sometime, but for now it's just one that I haven't wanted to take the leap with. So they're not bad, they're just not for me. Okay, question number 4. What is one thing or one card that has ruined a deck for you? I would have to say, I can only think of one deck that I don't have that has a card that I really dislike, and that is the Slow Tarot, the Devil. And I think this is Katey Flowers may have mentioned this on her video, and I know I've heard it on other videos too. The deck is pretty throughout, and then the Devil is the only like fat person in that deck, and it's very like it feels very like fat shamey, and I don't know if that was, you know, obviously the intention of the artist or what, but it just kind of turned me off from the deck, and it wasn't one that I was like dying to have anyway, so I just haven't bought it. And I do have another deck here. This is the Tarot Art Nouveau, and this is a deck I bought when I was still in high school or shortly after high school, so I've had this for like almost 20 years, like over 15 years for sure. And this was one of my first like 2 tarot decks that I bought, and I tried to learn on this deck. It's a terrible deck to try to learn from. I really love the Art Nouveau style, but the cards don't give you like a ton to work with as far as like the meanings behind things, so I was trying to like memorize the meanings off of this, and it just wasn't working, and a lot of the cards art felt almost opposite or like completely different than what the meaning of the cards were, so it wasn't a great deck to start with, but I still really liked it for the longest time. And then after I learned tarot and came back to learning tarot, I picked this deck up again because I'm like, oh, I still have this wonderful deck that I've had, and I still really love the kind of overall aesthetic of the deck. But there's one card in here that just drives me up the wall, and it makes me not want to use this deck anymore. I'm going to keep it because it's nostalgic and it was one of my first decks, but that is this card, the Strength card. I think this like guy clubbing this centaur just does not seem strength to me, like maybe in a negative way, but it also just seems so aggressive and harsh. I don't know. It just really throws me off, and I really, really dislike it. So I don't really use this deck anymore. Like I said, I'll keep it because nostalgia and because it was one of my first decks, and I do really like it. And maybe someday I can like just ignore that, but for now it drives me crazy. And to top it off, it's the card that they put on the box. So like this side has, you know, nice, very Art Nouveau style girl, and then this side, the Strength card with the centaur getting clubbed. I just really dislike it. Okay, moving on. Number 5. What out of print deck do you wish was still in print? This is kind of a tough question for me, and to start off with, I'm going to show you a deck that I have that if you would have asked me this question like a year ago, this would have been the deck that I would have said. The Spirit Keepers Tarot by Annabelle Wen. I wanted this deck when I first saw it, but it was already out of print, and I think I could have gotten the Vitruvian edition, but I happened to be like not really into tarot at the time, so I wasn't buying tarot cards, so I missed it. And so then I was really pissed at myself because I had missed the first edition and the second edition. And so then I was just like, I really wanted this deck. And then she came out with this third edition, which is the Revelation edition. So I have that, and I honestly don't really ever use it. But more just so because it just feels like a lot, and I just haven't taken the time to really like dive deep into it, but I really like it, and I'm so glad I have it in my collection. And it's not one that I would have ever been willing to spend like, you know, the few $100s on, like what it was selling for when it wasn't in print, but I was really glad she brought it back with this new edition, and I was able to get this copy of it. So that is like what my answer would have been. Now, along those same lines, the answer that I have today is the Bone Stone in Earth Flesh Tarot by Evelyn Cameron. And that deck, I think I was aware of it when it was on Kickstarter, or was it on Indiegogo? But I just wasn't in a tarot buying mood, and I didn't jump on it at the time. And now I'm kicking myself because I really liked it. And I just didn't do it, and so now it sells for like gobs of money, and I'm just not willing to spend that much money on a tarot deck. So as much as I would love to have the Bone Stone in Earth Flesh, I'm just not going to spend that much money on it. So it's a very cool deck, and maybe one day I'll be able to find a copy of it for a reasonable amount, but for now I am happy I have the Spirit Keepers Tarot, at least one of my wish list decks that I was actually able to get a hold of. Next question. What are some of your tarot and TarotTube pet peeves? I have a couple, starting with, I don't know if I would call it silly, but kind of an interesting one. So starting with the like fight between these decks that people tend to have, like it's almost like an elitism with like, oh, I know this kind of the Smith Waite style, but I don't do these, and so I'm better because I know this one. Or the kind of attitude of, well, if you can't read a Marseille deck, like you're not good enough, kind of an attitude. And it's like, it's so childish. They're all good systems. Who cares if you know them? To be honest, I pretty much only know this Waite-Smith system, the Rider-Waite-Smith system. I've been kind of dipping my toes into these, but like they're still just tarot decks. Like I can still use these decks even if I don't know the systems like back and front, because they come with guidebooks, and that's a starting point to knowing these decks. So I just don't like the like pitting the decks against each other, or like the kind of elitism where I know the Thoth and so therefore I'm better than everyone else who doesn't know Thoth tarot. So that's kind of my pet peeve, and it's never very blatant, but sometimes you just get that vibe from people. And I'm just like, we can all like what we like, and so what if no one's ever picked up these decks and only read with a Rider-Waite-Smith? It doesn't make them any less of a tarot reader to only like one system, or to only read oracle cards, or whatever it may be. So my other pet peeve is more so with TikTok tarot people than TarotTube people. I don't see it a lot on YouTube, but maybe it's just because I don't seek out those kind of videos. But on TikTok, I like to watch TikTok live while I like am working and just have it on in the background, or when I'm reading tarot for myself, sometimes I'll throw something like that on there just to have some noise in the room. And I see a lot of very like predatory and unethical tarot readings on there, and it really bothers me. And I know it's like just pumped out to the masses on things like TikTok, and so anybody could be listening to those videos. And if you're oh, I can tell you if you're pregnant, or very like, oh, so and so is gonna call you, like very predictive in kind of an unsafe way. I don't know, it just really rubs me wrong, and I really dislike it. They also do this thing where, like, for instance, this is the Marseille deck, the CBD Tarot Marseille. They'll just like hold up cards and be like, oh, okay, so yeah, he's gonna call you, or yes, no, whatever. And like, they don't really like look at what's going on, or they don't really like take the time to like dive into like the meaning of a card. They just like, it's like yes, no, or oh, this is a good sign, this is a bad sign, means he's gonna call you, or this means he's not gonna call you, or something like that. And it just seems very low effort, and you know, maybe they're communicating with spirit, kind of a thing, but I still feel like it just feels disingenuous and kind of like a cash grab again, or just predatory in a way that they are depicting themselves to an unsuspecting audience. Because like, we as people who spend a lot of time watching tarot videos and understanding what tarot is and what it isn't, and being familiar with the cards, like, we have a better understanding and have more critical thinking when it comes to tarot, that we can decipher that is something tarot can help you with, or that it can't. And I'm not trying to be gatekeeping and saying that, you know, no one can give those answers and stuff, because I don't necessarily think that's true either. I just think that if you take half a second and tell somebody, show them one card, that doesn't necessarily, that's not going to necessarily be accurate, you know. I don't know. And it just feels a little disingenuous and predatory and unethical. Like, it's kind of all just rolled into one. Like, I wouldn't want to see myself doing any of those things. So, and not to say I'm perfect in any means, and maybe, like I said, maybe they're channeling spirit when they're doing that, but it just, as a person who knows tarot and has had good tarot readings, it just feels sketchy. So that is my rant on live TikTok tarot readings. Some are good, I'm sure, and if you know of the good ones, leave them in the comments below, because I'm always looking to watch that kind of stuff. So, okay, question number 7. What are some decks that you feel should have more recognition? This is kind of a tough question, because I feel like it comes a lot down to taste, and everyone's taste is gonna be different. I really appreciate TarotTube specifically to fill me in on like independent decks that maybe I wouldn't know about otherwise, because I don't have a metaphysical store in my area. I can't really go in and like talk to people about tarot, and I have an online coven that I'm a part of, and we, you know, touch on tarot here and there, but like, I don't really have necessarily people around me that know a lot about tarot. Like, I have friends and stuff that read tarot, but I'm definitely like the only one who really like focuses in on it so much. So I don't really have a lot of people who'll be like, oh, have you heard of this deck? Or, hey, let me show you this cool deck. So I really rely on Tarot YouTube to fill me in on like new cool decks coming out or indie decks that I might not have heard of. So some decks that I think are really cool that I've seen on TarotTube, but I feel like other people might get a kick out of or benefit from. Starting with the Vendor Tarot. I think this is still available. There's a second edition. This is the first edition. I think you can get the second edition still. If not, I would check out her website. It's Leah Pantia? I don't know how to say her last name. I'm so sorry. I don't know if it'll focus on it. Kind of. Anyway, I'll put it in the description below. But you can check out her website for this deck. It's a very cool deck. I got this on Kickstarter, like I said, and it is edged in yellow, which I think is really unique. And it's got this very unique art style of like this geometric people and like simple, refined color palette. And a lot of white space, a lot of kind of interesting interpretations of cards. So I really enjoy this deck a lot. It's one of my favorites, and it's one that I don't see on YouTube very often. Very pippish minors. Like they have a little bit of substance to them, but they are still very pippish. So but I really love this deck. I really love the color palette. I really love the cardstock. It's really nice. It's like a really thick matte cardstock. I love the watercolor illustrations. So this is one I would definitely recommend checking out if it's your style. The other deck that I have seen on TarotTube as well, but I also think is very great, is the Starseeker Tarot. This is another one of my favorite decks, and this one you can find on Etsy by the Van Mystic. And this one is quite different in like aesthetics than the Vendor Tarot, but and I think this one's still available too, although I don't know for sure. I haven't checked in a while. But kind of a interesting art style. It's kind of got that soft matte touch finish, like kind of the rose petal finish. Very pretty, very calming to me. Like, I really like, whenever I use this deck, I feel very like hugged, loved. It's a very nice, relaxed deck. So, and this is the Starseeker Tarot. So those are two decks that I really enjoy, that I don't necessarily think are underappreciated, because I have seen them both on TarotTube, but I feel like they both deserve more love. Yeah, so those are my two decks for that question. Question number 8, the last question. What are your thoughts on negative reviews? Okay, this is a fun question. While I talk about it, I am just going to flip through the Spacious Tarot, which is another deck I really like, just because it gives me something to do with my hands and gives you guys something to actually look at versus just my background here. So what do I think on negative reviews? Well, first off, if you haven't seen Sylvain's video of this tag where he goes into talking about negative reviews, I would really recommend that. I loved everything he said in that video. Basically kind of talking about how to really be a review, you need to be a critic, and we're not really critics. We are content creators, consumers, so it kind of is a hard thing to compare, right? So However, that being said, watch his video. Like I said, I really recommend it. However, I think creative criticism is very, very important. I am a graphic designer / public relations coordinator / marketing supervisor, and a lot of my job requires people to give me creative criticism back for projects or for designs and things that we are doing. And honestly, it is so helpful to my job when somebody tells me, no, I don't like it because it's going to be used for this and not this, or, oh, this could be changed because of this, or for whatever reason. Honestly, I know it sounds like, I mean, most people don't like to be criticized on things. It is so helpful when people give you good feedback. So I think a good review that has to be included in that is not just all the good, fluffy, wonderful things, but the little bit of criticism as well that can be used to make things better. So that being said, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with an all positive review if that's your experience. I think being honest and ethical is the best route, and if that includes talking negatively about something for respectable reasons, I think that's very important. And I think there's a difference between just bashing something just to bash something, you don't like the creator, or it's not your favorite art style, so then you're gonna bash it. I think that's kind of lame, and I wish people would think a little more critically about that. But I think if you have an actual objection to something, you don't like the cardstock, or you don't actually this cardstock is great, that was just an example, you don't like imagery in the deck for some specific reason, or you don't like I don't know, something that's actually something other people would want to know, I think that's a really good thing to share. And I think being honest is more important than making sure everyone's feelings are not hurt, because if there's something bad about a deck, I want to know about it. And for an example, I have the Modern Witch Tarot, and if I would have known that the cardstock was the way it was before I bought it, I might not have bought it. I bought it when it first came out, so nobody had done reviews of it yet, so we didn't know that the cardstock was as crappy as it was. But that's one of those things that it can sway people, and we're basically advertising all of these decks. So to give people the good points and the bad points, I feel is very important. And that's it. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed filming it. This is my first time filming a tarot YouTube video. So I'm very excited to share it with you guys. And if you have a comment or a question or want to know anything else, leave it in the description down below. Thanks for watching.